Good morning and welcome to the Sports Debate Podcast. I am BA along with James J. Train Martin and six-term president of the Boxers Writing Association, Jack Hurst, and also autobiographer of Michael Spinks, Jinx the Spinks. So how you gentlemen doing this morning? I hope you're doing great. We're going to get right into our debate questions. Draft is up here. We're going into our fourth and fifth round draft picks today, Saturday. We've already had the first three rounds. So, which player so far who was drafted in the first three rounds have the greatest impact for his team next season? We'll have to. I'll go with Jack in this one.
Yeah, there are moving parts to this question. I mean, we have to name one player. But what's the reason that one player is going to have the greatest impact? Because how he impacts the team, not who necessarily outperforms another player. I mean, he might not be the rookie of the year. Someone might have a little better statistical year. They might be a little better individual than this player. But I'm going to throw you for a little bit of a surprise, guys. And I'm going to say Makai Lemon. And the reason I'm going to say Makai Lemon is because he's going to finally free up the Philadelphia offense to a degree. And I'm not saying A.J. Brown is selfish. I'm not going to go with that narrative. I think a lot of A.J. Brown's complaints about the Philadelphia Eagles were valid. They had offensive coordinators who would come up with these game plans that would be baffling. Jalen Hurts' role in calling audibles was really questionable in the way he went about it. And they lost a certain magic. The Eagles offense lost their way. And A.J. Brown spoke up about it, but let's be honest about it. A.J. Brown was turning out to be a distraction. Even if everything was innocent, Henry looking at a book quickly on the sideline, you got to know the narrative and the perception is really bad when you do things like that. And just the idea that A.J. Brown was in the news and they'd constantly be asking the Philadelphia Eagles, their head coach Nick Sirianni, their GM Howie Roseman about A.J. Brown. It was a distraction. And to come back with A.J. Brown, could it work next year? Maybe. Maybe it could have worked. But now by getting Makai Lemon, we know A.J. Brown is on the way out. And it releases Devontae Smith to be what he really is, a true number one receiver. When Devontae Smith came out of Alabama to the Eagles, he had star quality written all over him. He should have been a number one receiver. He should have been a star in this league, yet he hasn't been one. He's just been a heck of a good receiver. He's been a Robin to A.J. Brown's Batman. But now Devontae Smith gets to stand out and handle the role of being a Justin Jefferson, Jamar Chase type of receiver. I mean, a superstar type receiver. Can he handle it? Can he be that? Absolutely, he can be that. And the reason he can be that because of Makai Lemon. Makai Lemon is as solid as could be. He's not going to be spectacular, but like I said in the past show, he's the next Cooper Kupp type receiver. When you talk about Cooper Kupp, you're never talking about one of the best receivers in the NFL, but the guy's darn solid. Two-time Super Bowl winner, two different teams. Makai Lemon is going to bring that to the Eagles. He's going to have the greatest impact, not only because of how he's going to perform, and he's going to be performing really well. I think he's the second best receiver coming out of this draft, next to Jordan Tyson, just my opinion there. But he's going to elevate the whole team. Devontae Smith, he'll elevate. He's going to perform great. Makai Lemon, the whole team is going to be much better off for the Eagles. So that, to me, is the draft pick that's going to have the greatest impact this season.
I will have to say that's a very interesting pick, and I have to look over that later and see, because you have made some very good points about Makai Lemon. But I got to go with a different player. I definitely have somebody that I think I looked into your question deeply, because one thing I want to remember is that one of the times before is that I looked at the question and the words were not, it was open, but it wasn't I thought it was open for interpretation, but I want to make sure that I got everything, every specific word correct, and make sure I picked the player that makes sense. And so for me, it's intangibles that I'm looking for that's going to have an impact. And I think it's more like leadership, somebody that has high IQ, not just physical traits, not just someone that can do the things on the field, but also somebody that galvanizes people that's going to have an impact, not just on their one side of the ball, but on as the team as a whole. And I picked Caleb Downs. I picked Caleb Downs coming out of Ohio State. This is a guy that was highly touted. I think the only reason why he fell to 11 is because he's a safety, and safeties typically aren't picked in the top 5. But he's someone that has been mocked to be considered as high as 3 or 5, and arguably one of the best players in this draft next to Jeremiah Love. But Caleb Downs has a high IQ. He's very versatile. He's not going to just play safety. He's probably going to be in the box playing the slot, nickel corner. He'll be in the box as like a sub linebacker as well. And he'll probably make all the calls on defense. That's just how smart he is and how much recognition. He was highly touted and highly recognized in his interviews. And so, and of course, by his teammates as well as Ohio State. And then the reason why that defense was really organized the way it was is specifically because of him. He reminds me of Earl Thomas when he was with the Legion of Boom. And Earl Thomas was definitely the glue, the heart and soul of that defense. I know everybody wants to say that Richard Sherman was that guy, but Earl Thomas was the guy that allowed for these guys to do what they can do in the middle of that field as the center fielder. And I think this is what for Dallas, with the moves they made, drafting Malachi Lawrence too, as well as the second first-round draft pick, that's really going to help them. And having Quentin, the move they made with Quentin Williams and Jack, you let this guy go, but got a haul for it. Quentin Williams and Rashawn Gary. And that's going to really make their defense much better than what it was. And they have a new defensive coordinator now. So no more Matt Eberflus. I really think Caleb Williams is going to be like an all-timer there and a perennial all-pro in that defense there. And so Jerry.
Well, Downs.
Yeah, Caleb Downs, not Williams. Sorry. Caleb Downs. He's going to be
You're
a perennial all-pro.
You're thinking of Quentin Williams.
No, Caleb Williams, the guy in Chicago. Yeah.
Oh.
The quarterback. Yeah. Accidentally. But you're right. But Caleb Downs is definitely going to be an all-pro there. And I think out of all the players in the NFL, he obviously has the potential to be a defensive rookie of the year. But I think it's more so just his impact for their team, that they may be playoff bound because of their offense now and their defense.
I can't argue much because the player you named, I think, is going to have the second greatest impact. It's something I can't argue that much. And if you want to make an argument from your side, you can say you think the Cowboys are more likely to improve next season than the Eagles are, because the Eagles didn't have a bad team. They went 12-5. They won the division, but they were flat. Let's be honest about it. They were flat. And it caught up to them in the playoff loss to the 49ers. But then again, the Cowboys were 7-9-1. So is it a little bit of a mirage how much the Cowboys might improve this year? Might they be like a 10-17 or something, which wouldn't be a bad improvement, obviously. But you're right. I mean, he's going to have a big effect on the Cowboy defense. And coming in as a rookie, Downs, might very well be a lead on that defense. He might very well be a leader because he was a leader in college and the position he plays, when you're safety there, in a sense, you get to anchor the defense.
Well, mine's going to be a surprise too. I think Casey Concepcion is going to make a difference on the Cleveland offense because he's not going to be a number 1 or a number 2. He's going to be a slot receiver. He's 5'11", 196 pounds. He's got a pretty good arm length. He is also he's got outstanding acceleration over the 15 yards of route, which is perfect for a slot receiver. I think he's going to flourish under this system because the Cleveland's receiving coach is Christian Jones. He was the tight ends coach for Cleveland when Harold Fannin was doing all that good stuff. He also was a coach when Justin Jefferson on Minnesota, when Justin Jefferson was setting records. So he's got a track record with good receivers. With Cleveland, I know Cleveland is like, they're kind of like that. The team you want to beat up all the time because they stink for so many years. But I think they, in a draft in general, they did a very good job. And I think that they're trying to be serious about winning. I think they put a lot of things besides them. I think the only problem that they have right now is at the quarterback position, which is a big problem to have. But I think Concepcion will definitely benefit whoever is the quarterback because he is that guy. I believe in it's like they got no receivers. Jerry Jeudy's the only guy.
Well, they got Denzel Boston.
They added Denzel Boston too. Yeah, they added
Boston, who I think is going to be better. But Denzel Boston
he'll probably be a number. He could probably be the number 2, maybe.
No, he's probably gonna be the number 1. I was just gonna say, I think his bigger body, 6'1". Oh, yes, I think so.
They would have drafted Denzel Boston first had they planned on making him the primary.
Right, Concepcion was first drafted.
Concepcion is going to go into camp, and they're going to want him to succeed ahead of Denzel Boston. It's just
I'm going to call it right. Regardless of the draft, I'm just going to tell you, Denzel Boston will be he's got the better hands, the better catch radius, and he can do better catch. Casey Concepcion is fast, but he's not a hands guy, and that's gonna affect him in the NFL. He is not a hands guy. He catches the ball with his body. So when you see that, I'm just telling you, when there's time to throw those closely contested catches, the better receiver is going to be Denzel Boston. You'll see that.
I agree with you, but Denzel Boston, I don't want to say slow, but if he's ever going to be an elite receiver, he'd be about the slowest elite receiver.
No, for sure. Let me say my comp would be for him is Marcus Colston for the Saints. And that's not a bad person to be when you're catching the ball. No, not at all. He's not going to be, like you say, he's not going to be a Pro Bowl. Marcus Colston was the number 1. Marcus Colston was the number 1.
But he's
Marcus
Colston. Boston is not going to be a number 1. Boston's not going to be a number 1 because he can't take the top off the defense.
You don't have to. You don't have to. You don't have to. You don't have to be a number 1. I mean, you don't have to take the top off of defense to be a number 1. You could be a possession receiver. Michael Thomas couldn't take the top off of a defense, but he was a dominant player.
He's going to go into camp rated ahead of Boston. He's going to be given more of an opportunity. The coaching staff.
I'm not talking about Concepcion. Concepcion's position is going to be a slot receiver, period. It's not going to be a 1 or a 2. He's not a 1 or a 2 receiver. He's 5'11", and he runs real fast when you get on the get off. That's what you need as a slot. If you're doing that, he's not fast either. He's not a fast guy either. So he's not going to be a number 2. He's going to be a slot receiver if they make him a slot receiver. Boston's going to be a number 2 until Jeudy leaves. Jeudy's going to be the number 1. Boston's going to be
not good though.
Cleveland.
He's not consistent.
And we don't know what Boston or Concepcion is. We don't know any of these draft picks are going to be in the NFL. You're just going off an assumption of what their college careers are. But that's what I'm saying. You don't know either way. Jerry Jeudy's already supplanted himself as a number 1 receiver. So it doesn't make Boston's got to fight for that. Unless Boston comes out there looking like Jerry Rice, he ain't supplanting.
Jerry Jeudy drops a lot of balls, though.
I don't know.
And he makes boneheaded plays too. I mean, if he could stop that, then I would give him that. But I mean, this is the same guy that caught the ball, ran about 30, 40 yards, didn't recognize nobody was behind him, and he's trying to do a juke move, and somebody knocks the ball out of his hand, and they go the other direction. Just silly stuff. I mean, I get it. I mean, he's talented. He came out of Alabama as a talented receiver, and I give him that. And when he's on, but he's not consistent. I don't see He cries a lot about different things, and most times he's not looking like the man in the mirror or looking at the man in the mirror. I get it. I
Again,
guess.
we'll see. We'll see, because Boston, like I said, he's got to come out the gate. It's really hard to supplant a number one unless that number one is trash. I mean, trash. I'm not talking about Jerry Jeudy. I'm talking about trash. So he's got to come out the gate swinging if he's going to be the number one. And then I don't see, like I said, it's not even a battle between Boston and Conception. I don't think Conception will be a 1 or 2. I think he's going to be a slot, all the way solid slot. So I think, but that in what their offensive coordinator does, he's a running offensive coordinator. So usually if you're that kind of a coordinator, your slot is an important person, because it's kind of like a 1 to 2 yard run once you throw a slant. So I mean, he can work into that play. I'm just saying that he might change that perception of the offense for Cleveland. As far as Boston is concerned, I know this is all wait and see anyway, because these guys got to do well in the NFL. But that's
we could agree on for sure. Yes,
that's my pick. But anyway, all right. Speaking of draft picks, did the Los Angeles Rams draft Ty Simpson too early? Go ahead, James.
Well, Ty Simpson definitely was not a quarterback that was considered. He was considered in mock drafts that he would be taken maybe by the Jets or a little later. Arizona. It didn't. Yeah, he was all over the place. He was in between first round all the way down to second and third. But for me personally, I didn't see him as a first round draft pick. The quarterback pool in this particular draft was not all that great. It's moderate. It was a moderate draft, where like what you mentioned, Jack. If Carson Beck was taken in the third round, this is where most of those quarterbacks probably should have been taken. From second on down. I mean, I get the fact that Fernando Mendoza was the consensus number one and overall, and that's what I don't even include him in the quarterback pool anymore, because once you had him, to me, there was a drop off, especially in regards to needs of quarterback. Anybody like Arizona needed one. There's no way they're taking Ty Simpson at number 3 overall. You could move back, and that's what I'm going to say with the Rams. This was an interesting pick. Clearly, there was some discrepancy or some disagreement between Les Snead and Sean McVay, as one of them really wanted the quarterback and had a relationship in Les Snead with Ty Simpson's father, Jason Simpson, for Tennessee. I forgot the name of the school that he coaches or something. Anyway, they have a great relationship off the field, and so that leads you to believe that this pick was more so. It was driven by personal relationship, a little bit of nepotism in the situation. So, I don't think McVay wanted this move, because what makes sense to most of us is that you have a starting quarterback right now. Although you have to prepare for the future, the Rams were not in position to prepare for the future because it was their 13th pick, and they traded their 29th overall. They got that 13th from Atlanta last season when they traded to allow Atlanta to get back into the first round. So they had 2 first rounders, but they were able to make moves. If you're going to make a move and take in probably arguably the best corner that's available in a trade or for free agency in Trent McDuffie, then you only have 1 first rounder. And if you're going to use that, you take your best available. What seemed to be common sense to us, you're going to take your best available to help Matthew Stafford, because one, you don't know the situation what you're going to have in Puka Nacua this going into the season because of his off the field issues, and then of course you got an aging receiver in what's his name? I can't think of the guy, the tall guy with the dreads.
You talking about Devontae?
Devontae, yes.
Adams.
Yeah, Devontae Adams. You're not sure about him and his age, or how much of a drop off he may have. They could have taken a Mekhi Lemon there, like what Jack just mentioned, what type of impact he's going to have. He was taken at number 22? Mm-hmm. When did the Eagles pick?
20.
Number 20? No,
20. 20.
20.
Yeah, because
and so Yeah, they probably could have taken him at 13. And with that said, now you put your whole team in a bind. But I mean, I could see if a team wanted to grab him there, specifically because this is a team that's going to be, they're perennially in the playoffs, so they're always going to be picking later. So if you have a quarterback like next year's pool, there's not a lot of. I mean, there's going to be a lot of quarterbacks that are available, but they won't be probably available to them where they're probably going to be picking from, and so they probably would have to trade and give up assets. And so, but again, I could see why Sean McVay was not upset. I mean, was not happy in a post draft conference. He said whatever was said between him and the GM, he's going to keep between himself. And the phone call was weird because when Ty Simpson answered the phone, I mean, when he talked to when Sean McVay answered the phone, Ty Simpson was like, "Hey, let's do this to go win championships." And Sean McVay was like, "Yeah, okay, we'll see when you get here," pretty much. And it was just like it was an awkward conversation. You can just tell he wasn't happy. He tried to put on a face for it, but it was just, you see Sean McVay when he's on the sideline, he makes those faces when he's really not happy.
Did they draft him too early or not? You're bouncing all over the place. What about an answer? Did they draft him too early or not? I have no clue.
What did I say in the beginning? Did I not say yes? Did I not say yes? They did draft him too early. Yes. I'd say that.
You're justifying it, how it could be a good move.
Yeah. Well, they did draft him too early. Yes, they shouldn't have done it. Most of my points, the majority of my points I mentioned was saying that no, they shouldn't have drafted him at 13 because you could have got somebody else. You could have got Mekhi Lemon here. So yes, just to appease you, Jack, I'm gonna say it again. The Rams drafted Ty Simpson too early.
Okay, my response is it doesn't matter what any of us think, whether they drafted him too early or not. It's what they think. It's completely what they think. If they feel he's going to be a franchise quarterback, they had to draft him when they did. They couldn't wait. No one would have had a problem with any team that drafted Ty Simpson at the end of the first round. Had it been Arizona and they moved up to the back end of the first round and they drafted Ty Simpson, no one would have complained. No one would have said it's that early. I mean, we've seen things like this happen before when the Giants drafted Daniel Jones at number 6 overall that year ahead of Dwayne Haskins. The complaint was, well, it wouldn't have been so bad if the Giants were going about 18th or 20th and drafted Daniel Jones, but at number 6 overall, it was too much of a reach. But if that's your guy, you can't fool around. You can't risk losing him. Had the Rams not drafted Ty Simpson at number 13, they weren't going to get Ty Simpson altogether. There's a good chance they weren't going to get him all together. And they realized that because then they would have had to try to maneuver certain deals, maybe a future number 1 or this or that, to try to get in position to draft Ty Simpson. And there was going to be no guarantees going to be available. At number 13, at least you got your guy. You got your guy of the future. And to expand a little the way you did, James, the way these things turn out, I mean, there's a history behind this. I mean, the Packers with Jordan Love, they drafted him, and Aaron Rodgers wins a couple of MVPs, and he plays 3 seasons before Jordan Love gets to be the starter. Had Aaron Rodgers continued to perform at an MVP level, Jordan Love wasn't going to see the field. And there have been other cases like that, as well. There's another case that just slipped my mind that's very obvious.
Brett Favre and Aaron Rodgers.
Brett Favre, that's it exactly. Brett Favre and Aaron Rodgers. Rodgers sat for 3 years. It made no sense to draft, Aaron Rodgers at the time because Brett Favre could have used some other help. But you draft your guy of the future. Ty Simpson's going to sit as long as Matthew Stafford is playing at a high level. But at some point, Matthew Stafford's going to stop playing at a high level, and it might be due to injury or whatever. And they're going to be licking their chops, waiting to give Ty Simpson the first chance possible. Now, if we're going to just change the narrative of the question a little bit here to go to what you were talking about, is Ty Simpson worth picking that high? And you like to point out the red flags, and rightfully so, like you've done, James, in the past show with Arch Manning, if you can't beat out Quinn Ewers. Well, my thing is Ty Simpson, if you can't beat out the likes of Jalen Milroe at Alabama, you're sitting behind him. That to me is a red flag, right over there. And we'll see how good Ty Simpson is. He might, he's talented. He might turn out to be a heck of a player. But I didn't realize that phone conversation that you were telling us about. It does make me laugh with Coach McVay. Ty Simpson gets on and let's win championships. And you nearly get the feeling, the way you described it, that Coach McVay felt like saying, shut up, okay, and just show up here, work hard, we'll help you, but tempe enthusiasm.
And I'm going to add to that and say that was the first phone call, but when he got into the post conference, he said that he'll compete with Stetson Bennett. That's, typically coaches, if that's their guy, they're not going to put that out there that you're going to compete with some guy that wasn't even drafted. You're not going to say that. He said that.
Jacksonville, Gardner Minshew, and Urban Meyer was going to have Trevor Lawrence compete with Gardner Minshew, and Lawrence was the number 1 overall pick. And my response was, Urban Meyer is a complete idiot, who should be halfway to being fired. He was, just for that remark. Could you imagine you take the number 1 overall pick in the draft, have him compete, and then say he loses the job? You set him back. It is so stupid. But that was Urban Meyer, how he a bundle of stuff that he messed up there.
I think regardless of whatever we think, me personally, I think they picked him too high. But as to Jack's point, Mendoza was going to go to to the Raiders regardless because they needed a quarterback. It's all about what the team needs. If Les Snead thought that the Rams needed a quarterback for the future, and now was the time to get him, the hell with it. And to tell you, the Rams roster isn't that bad. Okay, yeah, they probably could have used somebody. But again, this draft wasn't the greatest draft. So if you feel that the quarterback that you need to give for the future is there, take them. Because, the Rams mantra is F them picks. You know what I'm saying? So they don't care. But they got a solid roster right now, defensively and offensively, regardless of Nakua's problems and the fact that there's an Agent Adams on there. They do have potential players that will get them to a Super Bowl this year. I think that's what every team's goal is, to immediately try to get to a Super Bowl in their year. A lot of teams draft for future, like the Lions. The Lions, they did draft for the future. They don't really care about winning immediately. Just drafting for the future. And I think this is one of those cases that, the Rams said, hey, we got Stafford. We don't know how long we're going to have Stafford. Let's get Ty Simpson in here. He's a pretty good quality quarterback. Whatever. I don't think so. But the matter is he's going to be up there. That's
the only problem. That's the problem I have. That's who the GM liked. I think the guy who coaches quarterbacks, who's sort of a quarterback whisperer, that may not be who he likes. And that's where I have a problem, is that if that's not what my coach wants, and that's, I got to figure out another way. If you disagree with it, we got to figure something else out. We got to do something else. Maybe trade for another guy that, like you did Matthew Stafford. Wait till later, because my problem with the situation with which we mentioned about Green Bay, maybe you could have got a player that would put them over the hump to get them over the NFC Championship. This is the guy that had 2 MVPs in a row.
You risk losing your guy. James, you risk losing your guy. Let's say Snead, the Rams GM, he feels about Simpson the way I feel about Trinidad Chambliss. If Trinidad Chambliss was coming out, I'm not messing around risking losing him. I'm going to take him with the number 2 overall pick if I have to. If he's projected to be maybe a late first round pick, but I think there's a reasonable chance I could lose him if I don't take him, or another team could take him in the mid rounds. I overreach a little because I can't risk losing my guy. And obviously that's where they feel about Ty Simpson. But as Brian pointed out, I wasn't fully aware the relationship the GM had with Ty Simpson's dad. Does that, that probably factored into it heavily,
Yeah, without a doubt. Yeah, without a doubt. And that's what that kind of alarms me in the situation. If I'm only doing this because we're having a bit of a nepotism situation going on, and I don't know what the relationship between Les Snead and Sean McVay is. That tells me right there's some issues there, because no GM, if you have a coach that's already showing you that he can win championships, why would you go just take the pulling rank and go over his head just because you're doing? I think part of it might be the nepotism. I think part of it is that.
Stafford's going to benefit. He's due for an extension. He can play hardball now. He could play complete, because if he shows up to camp without a contract, he could say, we know anyway, I'm not the quarterback of the future. They're looking to move on anyway, and that's okay. I'll try to help Simpson out all I can and try to. But it's going to be very messy if he doesn't get his contract now. So he's going to benefit, in a way.
Yeah, just one last thing before we go to the next question. I think Stafford, the whole situation with the McVay, I think he was disappointed where they picked Ty Simpson. I don't think he necessarily didn't want Ty Simpson or didn't like Ty Simpson. I think to the benefit, you picked him too high, and they could have got somebody else. I think that's a coach's mentality all the way anyway. You could have got somebody else. Regardless, Snead is going to make the pick, okay? And if he goes against the coach, what the coach wants, maybe he wanted a receiver or something like that first before they got Ty Simpson. But Snead was like, no, we're going to go get our quarterback first. And that didn't rub off well with McVay. It's not the fact that who the player was. Well, Ty Simpson could have got him later and maybe say, hey, we can get that pick. We can get Ty Simpson if we got to move up, if that's what you want to do in the second round. But in the first round, we need to get somebody that's going to be a playmaker on our team. That's his mentality. So probably that's
now I gotta play devil's advocate in that situation where that guy probably would have been taken for the Steelers. The Steelers might have grabbed him, ahead of. They probably couldn't have got. He wouldn't have fell to the second round because they needed a quarterback. They got Drew Aller. I guarantee they would have taken Ty Simpson over Drew Aller.
Well, they would just would have proved Jack's point about getting the quarterback that they wanted. Because then they would have, they'd have to get him beforehand if they thought that was going to happen, and maybe that was part of the whole decision making and getting him. So it is what it is.
Back to my point, I think he was drafted. He was drafted too early. Yes, I think that was the case. He was drafted too early.
But time will tell. That's what a good thing about the draft is. All right, next question. Steve Cohen says that the New York Mets will never have a captain as long as he owns the team. Do you agree with this decision? Go, Jack.
I agree with the decision in the sense that captains are overrated. I mean, it's a title you give a super player to make them just feel, oh, you're a leader. We're kind of signing off on you being a leader, validating you being a leader. For example, Derek Jeter referred to as being the captain. What did he do as the captain? I mean, there were other leaders on the team, and when Jeter had a problem with A-Rod, they get along great now. They're in the same broadcast booth. They're friends. Good. I hate to bring up the past. He wouldn't speak up on behalf of A-Rod when the fans were kind of giving it to A-Rod. And it's just the title that glorifies a guy. It builds up his ego. I mean, the coach is the captain of the team. It'll work itself out. The reason Steve Cohen is saying that is because if he had to appoint a captain of the Mets, the obvious choice on the surface should be Francisco Lindor. But the problem is Lindor's been a lousy teammate. So how do you make him a captain? Same we were talking football a little while ago. If it were the Steelers in the past, it should be Ben Roethlisberger. But Ben Roethlisberger was a lousy guy. Who'd want a guy like him as your captain? So, and Juan Soto, the Mets signed Juan Soto to the 15-year deal. So they don't want to make Lindor captain. Lindor doesn't get along with Soto by all reports, even though no one has validated it. But the red flag is this. They moved Soto's locker to the other side of the room, away from Lindor's. That should tell you a lot. And also when Jeff McNeil won the batting title, Francisco Lindor told him, if you win the batting title, I'm going to buy you a new car during the season. McNeil wins the title. It took Lindor forever to give him the new car. It took him forever. And when it was making, and McNeil was traded to the Oakland Athletics this offseason. And when McNeil was on second base and Soto went by and joked around with him, McNeil ignored him. Like, I don't want to talk to you, So that kind of validates the suspicion about how Lindor would get along with teammates. Lindor's been with the Mets a number of years. I mean, and it's a sticky situation. If you want Soto to be a true leader of the future, you can have Lindor as your captain. Now, if Soto was on the Yankees, Aaron Judge was named the captain. Soto wouldn't feel threatened by that. He liked Judge a lot. He liked Judge. He admired him. Judge was his friend. That's great. Judge is the captain of this team, Soto. He's been here longer than me. He's a great guy. I love Aaron. He doesn't feel that way about Lindor. Lindor just wasn't the type of leader you want. So Steve Cohen is saying that to kind of protect Lindor in a way, that we're never going to have a leader. You can't name Soto the captain, and not Lindor. And if you name Lindor the captain and not Soto, you're kind of minimizing Soto a little bit, considering how he apparently feels about Lindor. So, but captains on teams are overrated in general. Let me just say that. It's just an ego thing. So I don't disagree with Steve Cohen's decision. But by the way, if Lindor retired a year from now, Soto would be made captain of the Mets. Cohen would change his mind, But I agree with Cohen on the surface. Yeah, you don't need a captain on the team. We all know who leaders are.
The only problem I have with that is like, look, you made some valid points in regards to guys who are just taking a title as leaders or as captains, and they're not really good leaders. That's where I have a problem with it. Is like, I see what Steve Cohen said, that he believes that there could be multiple leaders in the room. Take the mantra, take the element of football and how they do it. Football, to me, in regards to, I love the fact that there's multiple captains on the teams, because yes, you have people in different groups. To me, you should at least elevate and give titles to those guys and let it be voted. It should be voted. Those guys vote. So you get the aspect, not just naming some guy. Guys that are saying, this is my peer. I see what he does on the field day in and day out. I would prefer him to be, and he's already shown that he's a leader in this team. Like I mentioned, Caleb Downs. I guarantee you he's going to be one of the captains at some point of that team. It may be this year, maybe not this year, but he's probably going to be a captain. But he's going to get voted. That's because of what he's done on the field, what he's done to galvanize his defense and shown that he's a leader of men. There's leader of men in baseball, like you said. Yes, I agree with that. But maybe you should name them captain. It's not just an ego thing, or to give it to the right person who deserves the position. Give it to that person and not say, oh, you got egos. I don't care what it is. You got guys that are managers. They have titles. They have to have a title so you can recognize who they are. Not everybody on the that's watching through the lens looking in is not going to know who the leader is. When you name him, then I want to see, and maybe say some things about him and let his teammates reflect and say, like, yes, this is our leader. This is our guy. You should have a captain. Not just one. You should have multiple captains on a team. Maybe a group of the outfielders, maybe a group of the basemen, maybe a group, of the pitchers. Guys, there's always going to be some guy that stands out, a person that stands out that is considered a leader. But it should be recognized and saying like these are the captains. When you come to the beginning, the guys that are managing those group of peoples, they get together, and those leaders get together. I'm just putting it out there. I'm not saying that's what should be. I mean, that should be done, but I'm just saying these are ideas. But the idea of not naming somebody a captain is asinine to me because, like he said, he even said out of his own mouth, there are multiple leaders. Then name them that. And I get it. He also said that it's a rare thing in baseball to name a captain. It's more or less than not. But you probably should name a guy who's showing that they are a leader of your team, because again, that's recognition. You recognize everything else. If a guy does great and on, statistically for something, he's going to get that recognition,
But they cop out, James, and they have multiple captains. It's a big cop out, and it depends on the sport. I mean, you have a team like the LA Lakers. Luka would expect to be a captain, and LeBron has to be a captain. It would be the ultimate insult to make Luka one and not LeBron. I mean, the difference is involved. With the Dream Team, Michael Jordan said, let it be Larry Bird and Magic Johnson. Let them be the captains. I don't need to be the captain. Because Jordan admired those guys and he thought it was the right thing to do. So that was great. That made it easy. But if Jordan wanted to be a captain, now you would have 3 captains on the Dream Team. I mean, and with certain teams like with the Giants, Eli Manning was a leader, but he wasn't really a leader. He was a leader on the field because of how he performed as quarterback. But let's be honest, a guy like Michael Strahan was more of a leader. So what are you going to do? Make Strahan a captain and not Eli one?
But I think the situation in football, like I mentioned, it's the sheer volume of people. That's why it's that's on the team. So you're looking at 53 plus players, plus the practice squad guys. You probably need multiple guys to be considered leaders. But I'm just saying a group of players. Baseball has more volume than basketball, so it's not many players that are on the basketball team that that you can just have one guy versus a lot more players in baseball. And so that's why I mentioned multiple players in regards to that because one guy to manage just 53 guys would also be asinine, because you can't watch over everybody. You need multiple leaders. So, but yes, I was just saying that, yes, I just think in baseball, you should have more leaders than not, because they're there. Like he mentioned, he did say that there are multiple leaders and you don't want to cause drama. And just if you pick the right guy or let it be a vote system, then fine. It shouldn't be any drama. It should be. I mean, if there is, then guys need to just suck it up and say, this is the guy that my peers voted for this guy because he actually showed that he could be a leader. And, and if you're the guy that you think you're supposed to be the leader, then be one. That's the thing. And if guys who are, I hate to say, butthurt about that situation, usually the guys who really aren't the true leaders. They just need to look in the mirror and see who they are at that point. If you weren't voted to be that guy, most times cream always rises to the top. If you're that leader, it's going to show. It's just going to show itself. That's just what it is.
How long has Steve Cohen owned a team?
About 5 years or so, thereabouts, approximately. 5, 6 years.
New York Mets need a captain because they're kind of a bad team right now. So they need somebody to stand out as a leader. It doesn't have to be Soto or Lindor. It could be somebody else in the locker room that has leadership quality. Somebody that gets along with everybody in the locker room. Most of the locker room will get. If it's one guy that can stand out and be a leader, and maybe Soto don't like him, maybe Lindor don't like him, I don't give a damn. If the majority of the locker room likes this person as the leader or the captain of this team, then that's the person that should be the captain. So everybody's not going to like everybody. That's just the way of the world. But at the same time, in this particular case with this particular team, I think they need a captain. They need somebody to stand out there and say, hey, we are getting our butt kicked. They lose 11 games in a row at one point this season. They need somebody to stand up there and say, hey, What's going on, guys? How come we ain't out there hustling? What's going on? They need somebody out there to say that kind of stuff. Yeah, I know you got a manager. He's supposed to be out there invoking that same thing, but at the same time, you need a player's player to be a coach, or not a coach, but a captain. And he needs to go out there and say, look, we got to listen to what, the manager's saying. We got to go out there and get this stuff done. We're not getting it done. We're not playing Mets baseball. We got to be out there playing Mets baseball, whatever that is. But anyway, you got to be playing Mets baseball. Let's go out there and win. And that's what they need, a captain. I don't care what Steve Cohen says. They need somebody to step up as a leader, because your team is what it is if you don't have leadership on it. And we can tell the Mets don't have leadership on there right now. They're not winning games. They should be better than what they are. It's ridiculous. But anyway, that's just my opinion. Anyway, next one. We're going to go to James on this one. Should the Golden State Warriors move on from Draymond Green or let him finish his career with the team? What you got on this, James?
I'm going to make my statement very short. No, they should not. No, they should not. Draymond Green is a staple there. He's not a guy that you're looking at that just says that, okay, we're going to keep him because he's done so much for us. We want to keep him on the team. He actually still showed, even in the play-in, that Draymond could play some outstanding defense. That's what he was known for, was being a defender, give you a few points in here, and he could be a playmaker with the ball in his hands. He still can do that. It might be to a slightly lesser degree than what he was at his peak, but he still can do that. Should he be someone? Should the question come up that whether or not he should be someone that should come off the bench? Maybe. It's getting to that point. I mean, he's 35, 36 or somewhere around there. They're all getting older. It may be a point where they break up the whole team at some point. Do you bring in a youth movement? But I still think Draymond is like I'm not going to say he's LeBron James, but he's the far lesser degree of what LeBron James is, but he's what Golden State needs. He's I wouldn't say the glue
Catalyst
that holds them together. It's sort of like a catalyst, I would say, yes, in that regard. But he definitely still shows some fight in him in regards to being a great player. Does he command the same amount of money he used to? Probably not. No, and I think he would understand that. But I wouldn't get rid of him or trade him or let him go or anything like that, because I think once he does, he'll realize his time is up, and he fits that system. He fits the Steve Kerr system and what he's done. I mean, and Steve Kerr loves him. Steve Kerr loves him as a player. He may have antics here and there, but Steve Kerr understands him because Steve says that's the kind of player I wanted. And it's evident you wouldn't have this player on the team for that long if it's not somebody that you truly admired or respected. Like, let's just talk about Dennis Rodman with the Bulls. We understand. I mean, all the stuff that Dennis Rodman did off the court, they kept Dennis Rodman for 3 years in their championship run. So it was a great deal for them, regardless of the stuff. And so I think the same situation. They drafted him. He's been their player the whole time. I think he should retire there. That's it. I think Draymond Green should not. They shouldn't move on from him at all. He should retire a Warrior.
Look, it's nice to be sentimental. I mean, Draymond Green can still play. He just can't play as well as he used to. But he can have value to a certain team if he goes to the right team. The Warriors are going nowhere with Draymond Green going forward. Occasionally, you have a legacy player that's so great, you just can't trade him. And even then you can trade him. I mean, the closest the Warriors have to that type of player is obviously Steph Curry. It would be off the rails if they were going to trade Steph Curry at some point. And that's a tough decision. Not that it's easy to move on from Draymond Green, but he could still have some value to another team. The Warriors lost more games than they won. They're not going to be good next year with Draymond Green. Maybe they'll come back and they'll struggle to make the playoffs at best, and then get eliminated early. he's got to be part of some deal. Now, I would sit Draymond Green down, and I might even give him an option. Say, look, this is a situation, Draymond. We respect you too much to trade you. If you want to finish your career here, we'll meet you halfway. We'll work things out. But we think you and the organization might be better served if you go elsewhere. But if you really want to be here, you can stay here. I'm all for that. But, Danny Ainge had those conversations with Red Auerbach. He had hypothetical conversations when Larry Bird was like late on in his career and Kevin McHale was late on in his career. And Ainge was close to those guys. Those were his teammates. He loved those guys. But Ainge, as you know, became a GM late on and a somewhat successful one. And he said to Red Auerbach, are you kidding? I would trade those guys in a heartbeat if I could get value because they're still names, but they're not the players they want. He did that with Kevin Garnett and Paul Pierce. He traded those guys after they won him a championship with the Celtics. Draymond Green could have value to a team hypothetically, like the Knicks even, if the Knicks get eliminated by the Hawks. Who says he can't work out maybe a deal, Draymond Green for Mitchell Robinson, for example, involve Josh Hart or Nobi or whatever, and make Draymond Green a Knick because maybe he changes the culture of the Knicks, in a certain way. He still has value, but he just doesn't have the value to the Warriors that he had before. I agree with you, James. It's a tough decision. You're sentimental. I'm sentimental too. I like a guy to be a career player for a team, but he's got to be a superstar. Draymond Green was never a superstar. He's going to be a Hall of Famer, but Steph Curry is a superstar. Draymond Green was just a heck of a player, consistent year in, year out. But I think the time has come where it would benefit Draymond Green and the Warriors if they parted ways.
I would have to say I agree with both of you. I think Draymond Green should stay there and finish his career out with the Warriors. I know sometimes a lot of teams will, they're always trying to bring in fresh bodies in there, because your ultimate prize at the end of the season is try to get into a championship. But I think Draymond still has enough to what James said, that has enough in his tank to take any team there, either off the bench or starting, either way. Steph Curry is the same way. I think both those two should retire as Golden State Warriors. That team would not be moving without either one of them, to tell you the truth. And it's kind of like the same thing I see when Ben Wallace was with Detroit, the Pistons. He retired as a Piston. He didn't go nowhere else. Those are guys that are staples. You got to keep your staple players because if they were loyal to your team for such a long time and they played and they gave their heart and soul for that team, that specific team, then you should keep them. At least until they retire. You're not going to lose anything. I mean, with Draymond Green, you're not going to lose anything keeping him. Same with Steph Curry. You're not going to lose any. If it was some little, shanty player, maybe. But this is Draymond Green and Curry. I mean, those guys are like the staples of the team. So there's no way I would get either one of them. So
I would have a conversation, like I said, Brian. I would sit down with Draymond Green. I might not say what I said before, that he might be better off if you win. I wouldn't say that. I'd say, what do you want to do, Draymond? Okay? There are possibilities. There are other teams. Do you feel you need a fresh start? You'll always be a big part of the Warrior family. If you want to finish your career here, if that's important to you, we'll end this discussion. You're going to be a career Warrior, but salary-wise, we're going to have to find a common ground. Okay? And I'd leave it at that. And if Draymond Green said, well, I could be open-minded to go to certain other teams, that opens the door. Then it's mutual. Then there are no hard feelings involved.
I think the thing that was the most, in talks every season for the last 3 or 4 seasons, talks have been talking about moving Draymond to another team, but he's never backed that. He's never said he wanted to go to another team. He's always said he wanted to stay with Golden State. There's players that will tell you that they want to move on. And there's players that'll say, look, I love this team. I'm going to stay with this team as long as they'll have me. And those are the team players that you want to have. I'm sure every one of our teams that we have, whether it be baseball, football, basketball, or hockey, we've had players that stayed on the team just for the fact that they were the stalwart of that team. Steve Yzerman with the Red Wings. Derek Jeter with the Yankees. Drew Brees with the Saints. I mean, he did start his career in San Diego, but he moved over to the Saints and stayed there for his whole entire rest of his career. He didn't go nowhere. Nobody wanted to trade him. Nobody even thought about trading him. I think the same thing with Jeter, too. Nobody wanted to trade Jeter. So, I mean, we all have stalwarts of our teams that we don't, even as fans, we don't want to see them go. You know what I'm saying? So, let's see what we got here. That's just personification, Sonia. He's a very good teammate, actually, I think. But that's just personification. But anyway, that will lead us to the end of our show. And thank you, everybody, for joining in, tuning in, for comments and anything like that. We will see you next week. Same bat channel, same bat time. And again, hey, make sure you go out there and get Jack's book, okay? Because Jack worked hard on that book, and it's a really good read. Michael Spinks is one of the greatest boxers we've had in our generation. Well, our generation,
multiple generations, yes.
So yes, it's a good read. Go get that. Go get that. Most definitely.
One thing, Jack, stay on just for one moment. I just want to talk to you for
I'm about to stay on. Yeah.
Okay, cool.
Yep, there you go. All
Thank
right,
you.
everybody,
Thank you.
have a great morning. See you next time.